I started out playing acoustic guitar and singing folk songs because that was what was popular at the time. And I was a kid and I was into whatever was popular. And just as I started to learn how to play the guitar, there was this tremendous explosion that came across with the Beatles of rock and roll music. And a lot of the people that I knew who were all playing guitar, it was just inevitable that the two were it was guitar music, or guitar-oriented music, and it was inevitable that they were going to slam together and there was going to be a big explosion. And you were going to get, I guess, what they called folk rock. That lasted not so long, you know, until it evolved into, it fractioned off into like country rock, as opposed to art rock, as opposed to this or that rock, and infinite different shades of rock. But there was a while when we were, well, the Grateful Dead still does a number of old Northern England or Scottish folk songs, Northern English or Scottish folk songs, in our current repertoire.
Such as?
Venerio, the way we do that. Morning Dew, the way we do that. There are a couple more that I can't think of right offhand, but there are a lot of them back there.
Okay, one last question. Were there one or two significant events of your life, either social or political, that really set a direction for your music?
Oh, I guess the Beatles. That was at least one. First off, there was the time that this friend of my family's came around and had a guitar, and he was in the army and he was on leave, and he taught me a couple of chords, and I became much enamored of the guitar. I was 13 at the time, and by the time I was 15, I was playing I had gotten one, and I was playing it, and the Beatles hit, and that was maybe the second biggest influence that I can think of. That here it occurred to me at that point that not only could I have fun, but it occurred to me at that point that it was virtually limitless what one could do just with a guitar and with music in general.
That's it for me.
One last question.
Yeah.
Back to folk rock for a minute. Do you think that Working Man's Dead and American Beauty, right, when history is written about that time, if we'll take that it was the band and Dylan and the Byrds and all that was happening, and then went on to the Mamas and Papas, and that merging of folk and electric music happened, do you think that that Working Man's Dead and American Beauty
are going to show up on that page?
Excuse me. Well, do you think that Working Man's Dead and American Beauty were an important chapter that led to future chapters that included people like the Eagles?
Well, I'd say that Working Man's Dead and American Beauty were links from the folk rock era maybe to future eras that were, you know, like country rock or that sort of orientation. I certainly would be surprised if either of those two records were ever to be considered folk rock. And there were a lot of songs on the first Grateful Dead record that we made, the first couple actually, that were actual folk songs. So I guess you'd have to definitively call those folk rock songs. I'm having difficulty dealing with the labels because I was just playing. But like I say, I'd be surprised if anybody called Working Man's Dead or American Beauty folk rock, and I think they were maybe a step in some other direction, maybe towards a country rock-ish, sort of a country rock kind of gray, hazy region, wherein you could put the Eagles and people like that.
Okay.
Great.